Welcome to the Pharos Fit podcast, where we help you to explore your capacity to move better, push further, and achieve your limitless potential through fitness, nutrition, recovery, and lifestyle. Hey guys, welcome back to the Pharos Fit podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here today with Jeffrey Scarborough. Hey Jeff.
Hi Peter.
And we have a special guest today, Elena. Hey Elena.
Hi.
You know, with podcasts, I think sometimes it's good to bring in like specialists and people who are really educated on various topics, but sometimes it's good to bring in someone who doesn't really know anything about fitness. That's not true. She does know stuff about fitness, but Elena is here to bring in kind of insights from kind of like, you know, sometimes we sit around, we talk about fitness amongst ourselves, and if you are working in the industry, you get kind of caught up in fitness. It's easy to get in too deep with stuff. And then sometimes you need to bring yourself back and really think about, okay, what is the average person thinking? The person that doesn't read a ton of stuff about nutrition or doesn't work out 18 times every day.
It's not obsessed.
It's not obsessed with fitness.
Yeah.
You know, it's there, but it's not, you know,
a priority
by any means whatsoever. So she's going to be chirping in with some nuggets of wisdom. So today we are talking about multiplicity. What do we mean by multiplicity? Well, when we try and define our gym, and we've done this multiple times, like when people ask us what is Pharos, we kind of like talk amongst ourselves and try and come up with a definition, and we always come back to this word of multiplicity. And all it means basically is different facets of fitness under one roof. We offer multiple forms of fitness. Every day we have 12 different programs that will run simultaneously. Everything is coached, everything is programmed. And it offers the member different ways in which to achieve their fitness. Elena, you still with me?
I am here.
You're here? You're here. Okay. And, you know, we arrived at this place of believing that multiplicity was kind of the way forward in the fitness industry. Again, via our own experiences, doing things that we thought worked, doing things that we think didn't work so well, seeing businesses succeed, seeing businesses fail, and kind of observing the evolution of the fitness industry. So before we kind of dive into this episode, I kind of want to like go backwards into a little bit of history and how I kind of view how gyms have evolved from kind of like the 50s to now, because it's been interesting to see this development over time of what was in gyms and what a member could get out of a gym. Because in the 50s and 60s, you know, I think it was more of a functional training gym, and that if you've ever read Brooks Kubrick's Dinosaur Training book or anything like that, it's like people were using barbells and doing more kind of functional movements, and they were using their own bodies to train with. And I think as the 50s and 60s went into the 70s, you saw the kind of introduction more of isolation machines. So people would use machines to create movement, whether it was a leg extension or a leg curl or a bicep curl machine or this kind of thing. And that kind of like detracted from the more functional way of training that was around earlier. But it allowed people to maybe build bigger muscles with, you know, less complicated movements, and it was certainly easier to follow because the machine would be easier to use. But I think it did somewhat detract from a person's ability to move well. And then if that kind of went even further in the 80s, and you kind of had either a gym where you would do bodybuilding type stuff, or you would do cardiovascular type stuff. And it was two different things. I would do either lift or I would do cardio. And then as that went into the 90s and the 2000s, I think you saw more of an integration of those two things. Well, now maybe I combine my cardio with my more bodybuilding type stuff. And at a certain point that translated back into more functional type movements. And then I think in the 2000s, you know, you saw this dawn of functional training, you know, and CrossFit gyms and this whole kind of movement back to basics. It was like, you know, I don't need all these machines. I am the machine, and I'm gonna move my own body, and I'm gonna move these barbells with my whole body. And you know, it was a return to all body type training, barbell complexes, and reintroducing people to the barbell, which I think was very, very, very beneficial, and a lot of people got a lot out of it. And then I think it got to a point where people started to use their brains a bit, and they were like, well, okay, this is great, but maybe there is a place for that other stuff as well, because a lot of people have imbalances and have things that they need machines for. If they have underdeveloped muscles, maybe some of these machines can be used to help develop those underdeveloped muscles, so that then those more complex barbell compound type movements can be done better. So then I think you saw a reintroduction of those type of machines into these people who are interested in more functional training. And I think that has now evolved into this what we call multiplicity of people wanting all these different things from a gym. I want to be able to lift, but I want to be able to do my cardiovascular work, but I also want to be able to do my mobility, and I want to be able to use these machines that can help me improve. And when I first came to LA, I saw that people were doing this in all these different places. So they were essentially taking out 3 or 4 different memberships to do all these different things. So I would go here for my lifting, and then I would go here for my yoga, and then I would go here for my indoor cycling class. All these different places with all these different memberships and all this different travel time, etc., etc. So it ends up being, crazily expensive, very inefficient use of time, just to try and stay fit and happy. So what we saw when we developed Pharos was an opportunity to put everything under one roof and make it more affordable. It's kind of funny to me because sometimes people say, our membership is expensive. I don't consider it to be expensive at all, just because we offer so much value. If you were to do all these different things in all these different places, I guarantee you it would cost you a lot more than it does to be a member at Pharos Athletic Club. And even, in comparison to other gyms that only offer one thing, we are not that much more expensive. So it's less about how expensive a gym is as how valuable a gym is, as in what value is it offering to its members. And I like to think we've done a pretty good job of offering, a lot of value, especially with the extensions we've made and the new equipment we've now got in. You can pretty much do anything at Pharos Athletic Club. And we're super, super happy and super proud to be able to offer that, because it's what we believe. We believe in multiplicity. We believe there is a place for all these things. We don't have a dogma at Pharos Athletic Club. It's not there is one way. It's that there are many ways, and we all have our own. We all have our own problems. We all have our own weaknesses. We all have our own underdeveloped muscles, or underdeveloped areas of our fitness that need to be focused on. And we need to be in a space that allows us to concentrate on what we need. And I think we arrived at a place now at the club where we can offer a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think it's an interesting parallel to draw of the way that gyms evolved over the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and into the noughties, and also the way that we've kind of changed the way that we've trained.
I'm sorry. Wait, the
70s,
80s,
90s, and the what?
Noughties.
The naughties.
Like the 2000s, the noughties, 00.
Interesting. We do
I'm
not
sure
say
that's
that,
how that's
but
referred to.
it's good to know. You learn something when you don't think you're gonna. Carry on. So go ahead.
So what I mean is, from the 1970s to the 1980s to the 1990s into the 2000s, or the noughties, as you now know it's called, gyms changed. They changed in format, they changed in equipment, they changed in the way that they delivered their product to the masses. So what I want to start with is actually, Jeff, I want you to kind of talk about your fitness evolution from kind of college into where we are right now, and talk about how multiplicity kind of came into your daily routine or weekly routine.
Weren't we going to name the gym Multiplicity at one point?
I believe it came up.
Right before athletage.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, so basically, I guess my story with multiplicity, or lack thereof in the beginning, was... like I said before in the previous podcast, I kind of started with the traditional bodybuilding style workouts. And then from there, graduated, had this internship at a CrossFit gym. And it's funny, I was just asked right before about multiplicity, and I was like, yeah, I've been doing it since 2012 or 2011, whenever I started CrossFit. And then I was kind of given a look, and it's like, well, I guess that really wasn't multiplicity. You know what I mean? Now it's like we have such a wide range of different type of fitness and training that, to us now, CrossFit and where I started with that was just sort of one set type of fitness. So I guess from there, I did CrossFit for like 4 or 5 years, and I was coaching and managing at these different gyms. And it got to that point, and this is a story that we talked about a couple weeks ago, where, I kind of just wanted to see how far I could take it. I was like doing well in classes, and I could always beat the other coaches. And I ended up moving to LA, and I teamed up with these 2 guys and these 3 girls, and we had a coach, and we were like, let's go for it. Let's go for regionals. And we, 2 of the guys basically like left their job of what they were doing. And we were training twice a day, 6 or 7 times a week. We were, eating an enormous amount of food, but we were getting together every single day and training. And, it boiled down to the point where we finally signed up for this competition. And, a few days into it, the whole thing fell apart, which I'm not really going to dive into. But from that point on, I went through the Open. I had done all that training. So I went through the Open, and I think ended up placing like 60th in California that year. But from there, I remember the last pull-up I did, I was like, I'm never, ever, ever doing this ever again. And that's kind of where like the pendulum shifted, and it's sort of, I made this example before, that Foucault pendulum that you see at like Griffith Park, where it's not just going left and right, but it's it's like going east to west, but then slowly starting to migrate like north and south. And so it's like my CrossFit shifted back to bodybuilding, but with a little more CrossFit. So, I would do my traditional bodybuilding, my bodybuilding regimen, but then in between I would row 10 calories as fast as possible, or I would do like, some squat cycle. And then in between each round, I would do 15 wall balls, and it rotated back and forth. And then I started to go into a little bit more of CrossFit, but still with a little more bodybuilding side. And it slowly sort of migrated. And now it's at the point where, we open Pharos, and we have over 12 different programs. And now I do a little mixture of both. So some days it'll be traditional strength and conditioning. Sometimes it'll be Tyler's sprint program. Other times it'll be my train program. I'll sprinkle compete or our CrossFit program in there, here and there. And now also like I'm training for my second half marathon. So for me, it's just sort of like a little mixture of everything. I've got a little cocktail of fitness.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have a kind of a similar like story, because similar to Jeff, like I started with just the typical bodybuilding stuff. I used to, Monday was chest and biceps, and Tuesday was back and whatever it was. And then, you get to a certain point where you do that for a number of years and you get kind of tired of it. And then I started boxing. And then after boxing, I started like Jim Jones type stuff. And then after Jim Jones type stuff, I kind of did more CrossFit type stuff. And then I came back to bodybuilding, and then I started adding in more the kind of stuff that we do at Pharos, like we have our ride classes and again, Tyler's sprint class, all these different things kind of come to play. But I think what we're really talking about is the need for a new stimulus. Like anything you do, after a while, no matter what it is, at a certain point, you kind of get tired of it, and you need a new stimulus. And I think we all arrived at Pharos from experiencing that. Like everything works, but nothing works forever. You get tired of whatever you do. So if you want a membership that's going to stay with you for a long time, I think you have to provide more than one thing, because if you don't, like they're going to go elsewhere for that new stimulus. So what we're trying to do is create multiple stimuluses.
Stimuli.
And you should come useful. Thanks, Lena. Multiple stimuli, so that we all stay, intrigued, vibrant, energized, excited to come into the gym. If you do come into the gym, every day, every week for a year, like if you're doing the same kind of routine over and over again, you're going to get bored. So you have to find a way to create new stimuli. And I think we've been pretty successful at doing that.
Especially with Los Angeles, and not like trying to stereotype everybody that lives in Los Angeles, but we have a lot of people that are in the industry. So they'll join these gyms. So let's say you join like a Barry's or an F45 or a CrossFit gym or whatever it may be. These people, they work for themselves. They work in coffee shops, and they're able to come work out 2, sometimes 3 times a day, and they will come 5, 6, 7 times a week. And kind of just like what you were saying before, without that level of multiplicity and being able to switch it up from time to time, you're just like anything going to burn yourself out.
Yeah. Sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So do you feel like multiplicity is like investigating a certain kind of programming for a certain amount of time and then moving on to a different kind of programming? Or is it doing different, like in a week, taking a different kind of programming every other day, or however many times you
what you're actually describing, which is really useful, is like non-linear type training. So it's like you're taking one day is strength training, one day is cardiovascular training. Every day you're mixing up the stimuli. And I think that's more what we're about. It's not like we had this linear schedule where we expect everyone to do 6 weeks of build, followed by 6 weeks of train, and followed by 6 weeks of fight. It's more like on certain days doing certain things. And the important distinction, I think, between what we're trying to do and gyms that will say, every time you come in, it's a different workout. Well, it might be a different workout, but it's the same stimulus. It's the same kind of thing, which is what a lot of the studios in Los Angeles offer. It's different ways of doing the same damn thing, creating the same damn stimulus, which ultimately, after a while, will burn you out. You'll stop making progress. You will reach a plateau. And then it's like, okay, what do I do now? So for us, it's not just turning up and doing like different stuff every day. It's coming up and thinking, okay, Monday I'm focusing on this, Tuesday I'm focusing on this, Wednesday's this, Thursday's this. So it's really planning out your week. I mean, a great example actually is the challenge that we're on right now, right? So we do a challenge. We do 3 challenges a year. Members come in, we take all their measurements. So we measure their current body fat percentage, their lean muscle tissue, their body fat, all their circumferences, that kind of thing. And then from there, we build, Emily calls it a fitness platter. Jeff calls it the Cheesecake Factory of Fitness.
That.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's really like, it's really saying like, if these are the results you want, and of course everyone wants different results, so it's depending on what the individual wants, we build a fitness menu for them, which is based in Multiplicity. You know, we are not a powerlifting gym. We are not a CrossFit gym. We are not a HIIT gym, whatever it is. We have all of these things, and we believe they all have a place in fitness, and they need to be tailored in different amounts to the individual.
So another question I have is then how do you find consistency through Multiplicity? Because something that I do, like I hop around a lot because I get bored and I take like a bunch of different kinds of, you know, classes and whatnot. But like I don't feel like I necessarily investigate far enough into like one
I mean,
area.
I think at a certain point you have to find a way to induce progressive overload. So if you do
what's that mean?
So if you do a program like Blvd, for example, when we're working in cycles, and you're maybe increasing the weight on the bar every week, or you're increasing the volume every week, or if you're in a class like compete and you're increasing your time on certain things, or if you're in train, or if you're in sprint, maybe Tyler's doing a cycle of 300-meter sprints, and you know what your time is in week 1, and then hopefully by week 3 you improve your time. Whatever it is, you have to find a way to measure your own progress. Now, it can be done in terms of performance, as in weight or in time, that kind of thing. It could also be done in terms of measurements. So if you're a competing figure bodybuilder or something like that, what's going to be more purposeful to you is going to be, right, what body fat percentage am I at? How much lean muscle tissue is on my body? So whatever it is, you have to find the thing that is measurable to you. Otherwise, you do end up just doing a bunch of stuff and feeling either generally good or generally bad, but not really knowing whether you're making actual progress. Does that make sense? And I think a lot of people are in that boat. They kind of just hop around trying to entertain themselves. It's like an entertainment thing. I just need to be entertained. Well, okay, you're getting entertained, but are you actually like making valuable progress on what you're trying to do? And I think, is that kind of what you're describing?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I mean, we all get together and we'll do our programming, and you know, we have a different emphasis every day, so that for someone who, you know, and you were calling it the other week, like the ADD trainer who's just kind of wants to pop all over the place and do all different sorts of classes, you know, we try to program in a way that you're never going to overload a certain body part. Moving forward, like doing Multiplicity or like training in a Multiplicity fashion, I guess you would say, I think unless you're going to a gym like Pharos or who has a bunch of different programs, and again, we program in a way where you can bop around from different class to different class, I almost like encourage people to have a linear form of training in the beginning. Like you should have traditional strength training and traditional conditioning and cyclical conditioning and maybe like Pete, if you want to sprinkle something in like joining a boxing class, or you want to start yoga, like I think it's good to have experience with all of that to know how to mend those together in a week or a month or a few months worth of programming.
Yeah, and I think there's also there's always an emphasis. We talk about what we're emphasizing.
Yeah.
So with a lot of people, like if this is the result that you want, then this is what we need to emphasize. Yes, we can sprinkle other things in, but the emphasis has to be on this one thing that you're telling me that you want. So if it's someone that comes into the gym and they say, well, I want to add 4 pounds of muscle in 8 weeks, it's like, well, you're going to have to emphasize build. Like there's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
Or if it's someone, I want to get better at sprinting, I want to improve my 100-yard dash, whatever it is. Like you're going to have to take sprint. Like there's no, you can't just do everything and expect to get better at this one thing. This thing has to be emphasized, and then the other stuff has to get kind of like.
So it's doing a variety of movement types, but with a focused intention.
Yeah, there's like a
depending on what
main
you
course
want.
and then the sides.
Got it.
So I have to indulge in my main course, but I'm allowing myself a sprinkle of sides.
Got it. I think I just eat like all the sides.
You just eat the sides and never
Just-
really
You
get
have
to the
no main course. You just eat grass.
Yeah. My eating habits reflect my decision-making skills.
Right.
Anyway, moving on.
So I mean, I kind of mentioned before about the fitness industry, and I think it's kind of interesting how things have developed, because if we take kind of what me and Jeff was saying before about, you know, just doing more of a bodybuilding type cycle, you know, when we just used to lift weights, most gyms when I was growing up, that's what you did. That's what they were equipped to do. So you could go in and you could do your squats, you could do your bench press, all your standard bodybuilding type stuff. And then there would be a cardio room, and you either did cardio or you lifted weights. And it was a very kind of standard format. And then I think you saw an evolution. I mean, the functional fitness kind of evolution, I guess, started like early 2000s, 2006, around then. And then gyms started to become more like, okay, we don't need all these machines anymore. We are the machines. We're going to make everything functional again and take out all the equipment and just use our bodies and just use like traditional stuff like barbells, dumbbells, maybe, and kettlebells, and get back to a more organic style of training. So you had all these new gyms crop out that took out all the machines and took out all the traditional kind of stuff you found in gyms, and they went back to basics. So you would go to like a box and there would just be like minimal equipment, and you were expected to do the work as opposed to like a machine doing the work or whatever it was. And that was great for a while, and I think people got kind of like, oh, well, okay, I kind of need some of the other stuff now, or I'm kind of done with this.
Here.
I'm dirty. It's dirty in here.
Yeah.
I want some cleanliness. So then you ended up going back to, you know, a more of a Globo style gym or whatever you want to call it. And then you'd have to go somewhere else for if you wanted to do like yoga or boxing or anything like that, just to find this new stimulus. But so the evolution sort of went, okay, a gym with a ton of equipment to a gym with very little equipment to a gym that kind of allows you to do both and everything, because at a certain point, you know, you need the things for the stimulus, but you also need a different environment than what you're in can provide you. And I hope that's what we've kind of created at Pharos, because you get kind of like the best of both worlds, right? It's kind of like gritty. It's kind of like, it feels warehousey in a way. You can do all your kind of like high intensity training with functional equipment, all that kind of stuff, but you can also do all your bodybuilding stuff, especially with the new extension that we have coming in. And you can do, you know, all these like ancillary programs that we have. You can Olympic weight lift, you can box, you can do Pilates, you can do yoga, you can do all these different things. And it's a much more complete, you know, environment than gyms prior to this could provide. And, you know, also, I mean, people will make the argument for, oh, okay, what about the gym like an Equinox or something like that, which does have like a lot of stuff. But the difference is with us, like we're still primarily a class-based coach facility. Like that's our bread and butter. That's what we do primarily. So if you come into the gym, we always say this, it's personal training in a group environment. You have a coach, you have a program that you're following, and you're essentially guided through that program. And then we have these accessory things on top of the guided programs that people can, you know, accessorize with. So I think we are different to anything that's come before. And I think it's an interesting like space to be in now, where you've kind of seen what people have evolved into over the, you know, the noughties, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. And we've kind of arrived at this place. And I think it's a really actually interesting time in fitness. Make sense, Lynn?
Yeah, it does. I just go to classes because I like to be told
Well, yeah.
what to do.
Yeah.
And not have to
And a lot of
think
people
about it.
need that. Yeah. I think there are different types of people. Some people, they want to be left alone to do their own thing, and that's fine. And there are other people that need to be guided. They need stimulus. They need to be entertained by, you know, the people around them. They need to like had that energy around them to get things done. And it's a time factor thing as well. Like I think if we're left our own devices on our own, we can be in the gym for like 3 hours and get nothing done. Or if you're in
Some
a class, if you're in a class being told what to do when, then you can get a lot done in like 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. You're like in and out.
So another thing I wanted to talk about was, the importance of skill acquisition, because I think a lot of time we join a gym with a certain goal, and that goal often is looking and feeling better. And a lot of people come in, they train, and they start looking and feeling better. But then there's something in the brain that requires the learning of a skill. You know what I mean by that? Like, if you're just doing the same thing all the time in terms of, yes, you can get stronger, yes, you can get fitter, but stuff that's easy to learn, stuff that's easy to kind of follow, yes, it takes hard work, but it doesn't teach you anything new. I think with training, there is always something about skill acquisition and learning something new that becomes very important at a certain point. And again, I think the facility where you train needs to have that stuff available. So if you take a program like Fly, like a gymnastics program like that, like you will do stuff in that's high skill that will create a new stimulus for your brain, a new stimulus for your body. And you really are truly learning something that you cannot do. And I think the same way about fight. Boxing is a skill that needs to be learned, even if it's not like directly correlated with an aesthetic goal or a body composition goal. It's something that the brain needs, to stay interested and stay excited about your evolution as a physical being, because otherwise things can get dull.
Yeah, and as a trainer, we love that. You know what I mean? When somebody comes to me and, whether it's a skill that they want to acquire or it's just like a performance-based goal, like what's the one we commonly like hear from most people? It's, I want to learn how to do a pull-up. And what's great about that is when you have a performance-based goal in mind, and let's say, like you said before, it's not aesthetically driven, but then, 3 months down the road, when you do have a pull-up, you look in the mirror, you're like, holy shit, and I look great too. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's good to kind of focus your energy over to something else that's not just like, I'm going to go and lift chest and triceps and try to deadlift, because you'll go home and look in the mirror and it's the exact same thing. But if you, go from not being able to do a pull-up and then one day you go up there and you try it again after doing all this strength accessory stuff and you get up there and do it, you're like, that's a great sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. And that's essentially Compete as well, right? That's our Compete program, which is essentially, a CrossFit type program.
Yeah.
And people will make that transition from Build into Compete because they get to a point where it's like, okay, I feel strong, I feel fit, I'd like to learn something new. And, you have to have those programs in place so that people can evolve and people can, challenge themselves in a different way.
Yeah. And those are great skills to learn as well. You never just snatch one day and you're like, I can do it. I don't need to do this anymore. It's always something that you can refine. Right. It's like LeBron, and I don't know anything about sports, so I always go to him because he's the only one I know. But it's like LeBron James is a great shooter, but does he ever stop practicing shooting? Absolutely not. He's always refining his skill.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember that, those kind of skills need to be developed over time and need a foundation of strength and fitness behind it. And I think that, again, that's often the problem that people have. They try and go in at the deep end before they've acquired the necessary foundations of doing things. Yeah. I mean, we've seen it a ton. Like, people will jump into the most complex class with the most complex movements and they don't know how to tie their own shoelaces. Like, it's a nightmare. Yeah. So it's important to build that foundation through the more basic movements and the more primary compound movements, and then evolve as you improve. Yeah.
I can do a strict pull-up.
There you go.
One.
There you go.
One.
And it took me a really long time to be able to do it. And
was one like indicating how many you can do, or that was like one of maybe 5 skills you're about to talk about?
No, one.
Oh, just one pull-up. Okay. Continue.
And it was amazing once I was able to do it, and that was it for me.
Then you quit? That was it.
Well, every once in a while, I'll just go and make sure I can still do it.
Still got it. See you next month.
And that, folks, is Multiplicity.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Okay, on that note, guys, we'll close that one up. Thanks for tuning in. Again, you can follow us at Pharos Aquapark on Instagram. If you're in the neighborhood, we're a neighborhood gym. We're a family gym. We love to see people in the neighborhood. So come by 1316 Glendale Boulevard, Echo Park, LA. And yeah, tune in next time for the Pharos Fit podcast. See you soon.